Welcome to episode 6 of For the Love of the Game interview series. This is an interview series that brings on players, coaches, and other professionals in the sports industry. This is your host, Pete Janney. For episode 6, I have a very special guest, John Gallagher, head men's basketball coach at Manhattan College. John, how are you doing?
Phenomenal, Pete. It's great to see you. Always good to be with you, and it's I'm just so excited to be the Jaspers coach, Pete.
Obviously, you getting started here at Manhattan and trying to, start off on the right note. It's been a busy summer so far, bringing in all the new faces that you have. We're kind of in the middle of summer here. Practice just began, but John, why don't we start with that, right? We're in the beginning phases here of practice. The roster is not quite complete yet, which we'll get into in a little bit. But what can you say so far about the practices so far and how good have they been to just get these guys together?
Oh, I think it's just been good to get in the gym, figure out what you have. Anytime you're taking over a program, and I've done this a long time, but there's so much energy it takes, and you have to coach your team and run your program, and they're two separate things. So establishing the culture, establishing what you stand for, establishing sort of the standard, and then on top of that, it's the terminology. Obviously, our players that have played in our program and understand that we speak a language, and that takes, I guess I forget how much energy that takes. So establishing sort of how we talk on screens, how we talk on handoffs, how we talk on back cuts, how we talk on, rim cuts, how we talk on corner back cuts, backfills, crackbacks, Chicago's, I could name them all. Elliston's, Texas, Canada, Mexico. We have a whole set of. It would be really hard for someone to just walk in the gym and understand what we were talking about. Now, for them to learn it, to do it, and to do it at an elite speed, it's take time. But they are getting it. We have a very interesting group. That's the word I would use. But I think it's a group that's growing every day.
John, in our conversations, you sound very passionate about the job. You're very excited for your first inaugural season at Manhattan to get underway. But really, when you look back on the last couple of months and the job that you've had to do recruiting, just how hard and stressful has it been when you literally start from scratch?
When you first got in the business and you took over when I took over my first job, I looked back at it the other day. We had to sign 3 guys. 3 or 4 guys. We have to go sign 11. So that's 11 deep dives. And you're not getting the first 11 you want, but you have to get 11 that fit what you want from a standard perspective. So it's it's more energy than I could ever think of, but it's fun trying to mold something or get a team to come together. So we have a couple more spots to fill. We have guys I'll get off this Zoom and I'll be watching 3 or 4 guys that are on our radar. This is just the new norm in the business, because I think there's really good players out there, and I think the more patient you are, the better chance you have of getting it right.
So you're in new surroundings. You have to move states now. You're in New York, but there is some familiarity there too as well in terms of coaching staff. You bring over J.R. Lynch as well as Tim Brooks. They're now on board. When you look at your roster, you also have Briggs McLean. So there's some familiarity there from your days with Hartford. How important was that for you to at least get that kind of stability there with those Hartford guys?
I think it's important to a degree. I think it's really, really important. At the same time, in a weird way, I'll rely on JR from an offensive standpoint. Maybe then I honestly maybe, and this is really interesting because I thought about it today. In my 12 years as a head coach, there might not be a guy that knows what I think when I think it. Maybe him and Tracy Carter would probably be two of the guys. Both have an amazing idea of what I'm trying to do. And having JR with me has taken a lot off. In practice, he just, he sort of has a feel. It's, maybe Jared, the head coach at Texas Commerce, who played for us, Jared Von Rosenberg, is the head coach of the new Division I team in Texas. He probably has a great feel for it, but very few out there understand what we're trying to do, like J.R. Lynch. So first, that trip there. Then Briggs, he's been in the program for a long time. So it's taken a lot. Like, we got done the first practice, I had to lay down on the couch because I was spent. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, my God, we got to get this, and this in. And, we spend hours preparing for practice. Literally, we spend 5 or 6 hours preparing because this is a new team. And what can they handle? Is it 5-on-5 or is it 2-on-2, 3-on-3? Teaching the build-ups better. You still got to do 5-on-5. You got to let mistakes happen.
Go back to 2021 here for a second. Hartford wins the conference tournament, cuts down the nets, earns a bid, first one, I believe, in school history. You find yourself playing Baylor. You're in Indianapolis. The whole world is weird. Still wearing masks. You guys get that experience, and you go up against, who the eventual national champions. When you look back on that moment, even despite how crazy that whole year was, and probably how crazy it was when you think about the 2020 game as well, you guys were right there, getting that, experiencing that championship. But when you really think about just having the opportunity to be in that moment.
Well, obviously the year before, we had played Vermont at home. We had lost by 1 at the buzzer. We led by 1 they hit a game-winning buzzer shot to beat us. So we were going up there in 2020. We just felt really good about the game, and the game got canceled. So that was such a blow. I mean, that might have been the hardest day. Coach, and I get it, COVID, I understand it. But, if you look back at that experience, was so hard. I mean, that was so hard because, we had beat Stony Brook at Stony Brook. It was a great road win. Malik Ellison came up big at the end. Hunter Marks came up big at the end. We had a lot of momentum, and we were excited. And going up to Patrick Gym at Vermont's hard, but we were the one, we kind of flipped it where every time we went up to Patrick Gym, we kept saying, we love playing at Patrick Gym. Whether we did or not, that's one thing. We just kept saying it and saying it, saying it. So the following year, we have to go to Patrick Gym in the semis, and we win. Then we host it. We beat UMass Lowell. To have those 24 months happen in a 12-month year to the date, it was really something else. And this is such a hard business. And, figuring it out, or like I call saying, figuring it out from a coaching perspective, for me, was such a journey. I have such humility. I understand how hard this is for every coach out there. Running a program and coaching your team takes a lot of energy, and it takes literally your full body and mind diving into it. So, Pete, it was a total transformation from when we got the job to when we built it to when we were winning games. 5 straight top 4 finishes in that league is really, really hard. Just like the MAC, it's going to be hard, And I always say this, John Becker made me Will Brown, John Becker, those guys, Ryan Odom, those guys really made me a good basketball coach. I did not make myself a good basketball coach. They made me prepare in a way that was so detailed that we were going to get our butts kicked in if we didn't really, really become tougher mentally and physically.
John, decade plus run at Hartford, highs and lows. What could you say you learned from your experience at Hartford that, you're hoping to bring over here at Manhattan and, really just trying to implement?
I think the first thing is I don't have all the answers. And the answers are sometimes lie within the team. And listening and understanding. And at the same time, the standard is the standard. We always say, lower the bar, you lose the winners. Raise the bar, you lose the losers. So we want to keep raising the bar every day. At the same time, we're raising it, we're doing it with love, and we're trying to get everyone excited to be here. So that's one thing. The next thing is when you make it about everybody else, the players just will do anything to win. So it's not about me. It's not about, us getting somewhere. It's about us trying to do something together that's special. And that's a day-by-day approach. That's not, oh, my God, it's November 6th and we're at Bryant. Let's come together and give a good speech. No, that's every moment that we're together. That's even when we are preparing for practice tomorrow. And, Coach Van Gundy had a great line to me a couple years ago. He said, you should start summers, your workouts, like you're playing next week. And we try to do that right now. And I always say to the guys, what if we had a game next week? And one of my former bosses, Fran Hamlin, used to say after every practice, who's your starting lineup? How many minutes? You have 200 minutes. How you breaking it down? And I've taken that away. Like right now on our board, it's who's playing 200 minutes. We go through it. And I think full transparency is good. This is where you stand.
John, a lot of great quotes. I want to call them Gallagherisms, but I don't know if you've gotten these from other people or they're original. I don't know.
Nothing. Fran O'Hanlon's best line, right? If you steal from one, it's plagiarism. If you steal from many, it's research. Okay? I did a lot of research.
John, why Manhattan? Why was this the job for you?
Tradition, the teams, Coach Lapis, Coach Fischilla, Coach Gonzalez, Coach Masiello, the 14-15 team. Look at that team. It's a great team, both those years, right? Then you go back and you look at the Luis Flores team, and they're great teams. And then the lap for Fischilla when Fran beat Oklahoma, or Bobby Gonzalez beat Florida, that team. Like, we've done it here. You can do it at Riverdale. And, I got off with a recruit 2 hours ago. I said, this program has won NCAA tournament games. I want you to realize that. That's what we are about. So getting the standard back up there is a day and night thing for me, Pete. And that's my job. Right now, I'm the caretaker of the program. Eventually, someone else will be the caretaker. That's how this business is. But for me right now, I have to put all my energy into getting it back up to the standard that which the 14 and 15 team had, which, just like I talked about. And that's what we're trying to do.
John, you assess any basketball decision related to the program, right? Pros and cons. I'm sure you have a pros and cons list. You scheduled this coming season 2 arguably top 5 teams in the country. You're going to go to Allen Fieldhouse to play Kansas. You'll also be making the trip, up to Connecticut to play UConn as well, defending national champions. You bring JR over from that staff, add that level of experience. It's going to be a great atmosphere. It should be a great game. Why did you feel like those games were right now at this point?
Because I just felt from a DNA perspective, we have some good freshmen. We have some really, really good upperclassmen. And my former boss, Dan Leibowitz, always says this. They don't hand out NCAA tournament watches in November. So how do we play these top two? Some people haven't won 2 in the country. I just don't think for Manhattan there's a better 2 to just say, hey, listen, this is the standard. Where can we get from this day forward? And I felt really, really, really compelled to take these 2 games when they were offered to us. And obviously, I could tell you we had a lot of other options, okay? At the end of the day, I thought it fit for the tradition and the history of the program. Are they daunting games? Oh, my gosh. I can't sleep when I think about it. But they're games that will pay us dividends in March. And that's why we do what we do, is to get the team ready for March.
I want to ask you about team personnel. Still early so far, but really, when you look at your initial observation so far, who are some players that stand out?
Obviously, Briggs. I mean, he knows what we're doing, so it's not fair. He's sort of set himself apart. Him and Perry Cowan have set themselves apart. Perry came from a system that the head coach is one of my close friends, so he naturally just fit in. He's a grown man too, I really like Seydou Traore. I think he's something you could build this thing around. He's a Bronx kid, OSL kid, and he's going to have his ups and downs, but I just like the way he goes about everything. So, and then Shaquille Bender, the junior college transfer, he's looked very good. Daniel Rusin, the transfer from Weber, he's a really, really big body. And then Brett Rumpel, those guys have stood out. And I think right now, there's a few others, but they're the main guys that have stood out.
John, can you discuss a little bit here, NIL infrastructure? Obviously, some schools are further along than others, but what can you say about Manhattan's plans in terms of building that up?
I think there's other schools in the conference that are just ahead of us. I think we're in our infant stages of it. So for me to comment one way or another would be out of line. I think the alumni are going to have an appetite for it because I think winning matters. But at the end of the day, we're the infant in the room. I think there's other people that are more mature in the process just because the timing of when I got the job, just to be frank.
You look at different models, right? NIL infrastructures. Are college sports in general better for this?
I think at the end of the day, there's 2 trains of thought on this. One is you pay them, you figure it out, and you do it. Or you recruit them, you bring them in, and if they've earned it, then you pay them. They deserve it. At the end, for Manhattan basketball, we're not there yet. We're not even in that. We will be. Is that 30 days? Is it 60? Is it 90? Is it 120? Is it March? Well, we will get there. We will get there. Am I worried about it? No, I think there's going to be great support once we put some pieces together here. I do think U.S. Congress has to step in and give it some structure so that there's rules and there's guidelines, just like in every other industry in the world in the United States. There's structure and guidelines. So I would assume that they would do that. and we would take that on.
John, last week you guys had a team practice. You had George Beeman come in. You referenced those championship teams under Steve Masiello, great teams. George Beeman was one of the leaders of that team. What was it like being around George, and what did he tell the team, during that period of time, and just having his presence there? How much did that mean, for the program?
Again, this isn't about me or whoever the coach is or going to be or was. This is about the players that have worn the jersey, and they're all one. And George is just a special guy. His faith in God. If you ever listen to that podcast that he was on, he's a really amazing person. He's a great leader, and I love for our players just to be around people like that, because I think it's inspiring.
There were some great coaches that have walked through the doors at Dratty Gym. A lot of them called you once you accepted the job at Manhattan College. Can you talk a little bit about your relationships with some of those guys, and really how often do you speak with the Steve Lappises and Fran Fraschillas of the world?
Coach Lappis was great. Coach Fraschilla was amazing. For whatever reason, I speak to Fran more. He was tremendous. One of my favorites is Coach Chiesa, Gordon Chiesa. Gordy, I've known him a long time. God, I've known Coach Chiesa, and he's just had so many good thoughts. He's such a basketball savant. So listen, I have a standard to hold up, right? And that's very motivating, and they're great people. Just like Coach Masiello, he was great to me, man. He was first class. And I've spoken to Steve probably 2 or 3 times. It's a fraternity. If there's one thing I learned about being out for the year, is this is a hard business. This is a really, really hard business. And, I just think that we're, as coaches, we really have to pull for one another.
You have a very interesting staff. You're a Philly guy. You bring in AD stays on board. He was on with Rashawn Stores here. He's a New York guy. You cover the DMV area with Tim Brooks, and then with JR, you cover the New Jersey area, which is also a hotbed for high school hoops. How much of a grasp do you feel like that your staff especially has over the Northeast? And what's going to be the key to extending that beyond and getting the brand out on a national level?
I think you just said it. I think we've hit the Northeast corridor. You have to hit that spot, those gyms, especially nowadays. There's just so many players out there. So I think we've covered a lot of ground. We did it on purpose. I think, with AD, we really have a presence in New York. We haven't stopped working. North Jersey, we've made some headway, obviously, with JR, and so many high school coaches remember him because he did not play as a junior in high school, and then he was a great player as a senior. And so many of them remember just his work ethic and his personality. And and Coach Brooks has been with me a long time. He just had such a good network in the DMV. Obviously, he was an assistant at St. John. I think, even my time at Hartford, I have a great feel for the New England corridor. And it's those relationships that, in the end, I think will help.
You were out of coaching, besides, I'm sure, a lot of good family time. What did a day-to-day look like for John Gallagher when you're not coaching, something that you had been doing for 20 plus years already?
Deep dive into, just I felt like I was going to get a crack at one of these jobs, and I interviewed for 3 or 4 of them, and I just think I knew it at the end of the day. I was going to have to get better at my craft, and we studied offense, we studied defense. How could I, get better as a coach? And I studied many things. So during a day, I would watch 2 to 3 hours worth of film. It could be our teams from the past. It could be something Porter Moser at Oklahoma wanted me to watch, or could be, something Mike Martin, something with Timmy Miles at San Jose State, or David Patrick at Sac State. There's just, in my friends in the business, I would look at certain things, and I really dove into the tweaks I'll make as a coach, and I think that is what I've taken so far, and it's just exciting to be back in the gym, Pete.
From a recruiting standpoint, too, obviously you step away. People who are maybe unfamiliar with you and your coaching style and recruiting style are trying to get a sense of, where does John Gallagher stand here going into year one at Manhattan? We see it already. We see the players that you brought in. It's a mixture of players. But in this new era of transfer portal and NIL hysteria, when you have guys, John, who are in some cases 24, 25 years old going up against 18-year-olds, what does a happy medium look like for a John Gallagher team in terms of roster makeup for ages?
When I was taking over the Jaspers, they had 9 seniors. So when you have 9 seniors and then you have 2 transfers, you really have to reload and you have to balance. So the first job I had to do was balance classes out. 2 or 3, 1-year guys, 2 to 3 2-year guys, 2 to 3 3-year guys, and then the mix of what we're doing now at the end. So it in and of itself, balancing the classes out, and that, so we could argue like, oh my God, this is a great player, but we're not taking 6 5th-year guys because we want to establish something long term here. So that's what we sort of did there.
A lot of great rivalries. Iona, Fordham. Last year, the Jaspers didn't play Fordham. This year, that's going to be back on the schedule, and that game, from what I've heard, is going to be in Rose Hill. How excited are you to renew this rivalry with a Fordham team that was not that far off from making the NCAA tournament for the first time in a long time?
It's, first off, we should play it every year. No coach, no administrator should ever stand in the way of that game. So that game should be played forever, and we should sign that contract forever, because it's just too important to both fan bases. It's not about one coach. It's not about one team. It's the longevity of it. I mean, Keith Ergo's a great guy. He's a friend. So I'm a big fan of his. I got chills watching Fordham's run last year. Just seeing the crowd in Brooklyn. I thought that's what college basketball is about. At the same time, now I'm not getting the chills because I gotta go beat them. So we have to prepare to beat them. We have to prepare, but at the end of the day, that's what makes college basketball great. Is you have these rivalries. We have to play these games because it matters to the fan bases.
When there's no college basketball, NBA playoffs are in full swing. How much did you enjoy watching it, being a student of the game, and really taking it all in, especially Coach Mike Malone, former Jasper assistant under Bobby Gonzalez, winning it? How happy were you for Mike, and what can you say about that, the job he's done in Denver?
I was really happy for Mike, but I was especially happy for his father, Brendan Malone, a long time. He has a house in Ocean City, New Jersey, and I visit there in the summer. I've seen him at Uncle Bill's Pancake House, and I've spoken to him, and I knew the 5-star connection. Just Mike's. Pete Gillen's one of my tight friends, really, really one of my close friends. I probably talk to Pete once a week, and Pete had hired Mike, and he had sort of been an instrumental person in Mike's early coaching career. And I think if you watch Mike or I should say Coach Malone, just coach, and how he runs his program it's just unbelievable. I mean, gosh, they are good. They're fun to watch. They pass it, and obviously they're one of the best players in the world.
John, when you look at the NBA game now, right? So 3-point oriented. It's so important to be a great 3-point shooting team. That trickles down to the college level. A lot of the mid-major teams that end up making the NCAA tournament are great shooting teams. There's really kind of no coincidence between that. Kind of in a position now, the NBA is getting rid of the 5-man, it seems, except for, Jokic, but he could do anything as well. Kind of ironic when you look at also in college basketball, you guys want the 5-man. So it's like you guys, there's kind of a real battle for that center right now. But when you look at, again, the NBA game, how much do you think the emphasis on shooting has trickled down to the college level?
It all trickles down, but it doesn't trickle down as much because you can win in a league a certain way. Gonzaga has played 2 posts in the past. Huey's played 2 posts in the past. Arizona's played 2 posts last year. So it's not as relevant. But it actually trickles down to the mid-major level more because the shooting is so important. So I think you bring up a great point. I just think in the end, skill and toughness win. You can't be skilled and not tough because the tough guy that's not skilled is going to beat the skilled guy that's not tough. I don't care. You have to have a level of toughness to win.
Who is John Gallagher away from the basketball court? Obviously, we focused all on basketball up to this point. Can you talk about your family and really what they mean to you, especially during this time of transition as you guys are in the process of moving closer to campus?
Yeah, my mom. If I'll start with my mom is the youngest of 12. My grandfather was a trolley driver. I think my family, my dad's one of my best friends, and I have 4 children that mean everything to me. They're really involved with the program. I have 3 sisters. One's a lawyer, one's a doctor, one's a college professor. And I have an aunt that's a nun that prays for me every day. So she watches every game. And Pete, if you want to know who my biggest critic in the world is, she sends me pages and pages and notes on what I did wrong and who we should play more. So for all the fans out there, if you want to get to somebody, get to Sister Kate. She'll be all over me early in the season. So she will be in attendance. They don't miss a lot of games. My mom doesn't miss a lot of games. I got 50-some first cousins, and a lot of them will be at the games, and they're fully engaged. It's definitely a blessing to have such a loving family that cares so much.
John, at Hartford, you had the neighborhood. Any nicknames so far or monikers for what Riverdale is becoming?
I don't want to jump the gun, but it's definitely something different than neighborhood because you can't do the neighborhood. But is it the borough? Could be the borough. I have a lot of ideas on it. It'll come out when it hits.
Yep. How about? I'm gonna put you on the spot here. You're a Philly guy. Would you rather have a good Philly cheesesteak or a good New York pizza slice?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Well, you want to know the answer? Depends on the roll. The roll's a good roll. The other thing is, I'll never eat a cheesesteak outside of Philly. I've never had a Subway in my life. I've never had a Subway sandwich. I think the roll for every, and I could look. The delis around here are just unbelievable. So
they are.
So I'm big on the roll. I think the roll is everything. So
no, and recently you spoke to a couple of hundred Manhattan alums in Spring Lake. Can you talk about that experience, being around a lot of successful people who went on to launch successful careers outside of Manhattan, and really just speaking to them and promoting yourself in the Manhattan brand under John Gallagher.
Forget about basketball for a second. For our college to understand that we have to tell our story. We have to tell our story. What's our story? Our story is that the CEO of American Express went to Manhattan College. The story is that down at Spring Lake, there's 150 to 200 people in a room that are graduates that care and are very successful because they believe that the Lasallian experience at Manhattan College is the reason they are where they are. We have to tell every story, and we have to sell it better. We have to tell it better, and we have to believe in it, that it matters to future students, and not only the athletes, just the future students. That our engineering department and Professor Solkin, and if you're an engineer and he's walking around campus and he's engaging everybody. Well, he built one of the best engineering programs in America. He did, and it matters. And our business school is one of the best in America. And I think if we don't tell our story, someone else is telling theirs. And it matters to attracting students, and it matters to winning basketball games, because when I was playing back in the 90s, it was about, all right, I can go play there. Now, when you're recruiting kids, it's where have your alums gone? What have your alums done? There's so much more information, and we just have to tell our story better, and we will.
And when you're back in Philly, what's the go-to spot for the Philly cheesesteak for our listeners?
Delco Steaks, best roll.
Okay. Do you have a spot that is a must hit every time?
The one in Broomall, Pennsylvania, right at Delco. It's right there. Or if I'm going in the cities, it's D'Alessandro's. Those two.
I really appreciate you coming on. It was a great episode, covered a lot of ground, and you're always welcome on this show. Just know that.
Well, Pete, we really appreciate all your support, and this is going to take time, but I'm really just excited to be the Jaspers coach.
Thanks, John. We'll check in with you soon, and that's a wrap for episode 6.